You're welcome back. Well, as at the 8th of September 2021, United States dollar assets accounted for the lion's share, about over 72% of Nigeria's external reserve stock, which was at about $36.25 billion. It increased to $36.03 billion on the 13th of September, and that was because of the SDR. We talked a lot about that on this program, where Nigeria got $3.35 billion SDR from the IMF. Foreign exchange required for external debt servicing has also increased, rising from 289.45 million in the fourth quarter of 2020 to 103.41 million in the first quarter of this year. Well, it's no longer news that there's deficits of foreign exchange supply. We noticed that in the disparity of price in the official rate, the I&E window, and the parallel market. Oh, let's get the thoughts of an economist and partner, head of transfer pricing services at Anderson, Nigeria, Dr. Josh Bamford, to tell us what he thinks about this and possibly prefers some possible solution to it. Good to speak with you, Dr. Josh. Good morning.
Good morning, Nini. How are you doing?
I'm great. So first of all, let's start from the very bottom and see the importance of foreign exchange market, a foreign exchange rate, and external reserve to the Nigerian economy.
Thank you. I think it's very important that the average Nigerian understands the interplay of the foreign exchange market and how it impacts our daily lives. Ultimately, what we care about as individuals is whether we can have or enjoy a better standard of living. That means, can we work and income or salaries for us to afford basic goods and services, which then improves our welfare, which improves standard of living of the average Nigerian. On the other side is the fact that all these goods and services come with a price tag. So you don't want a situation whereby inflation is allowing the costs of these goods and services to be higher than the rate at which your income or salary increases. So it's important that government manages our ability to get jobs, as well as control the rise of average prices in the form of inflation. So it begs the question: how does the foreign exchange market impact these two important goals? That is, increasing standard of living of the average Nigerian and making sure that cost of living doesn't get out of hand in terms of its rights. Now, the foreign exchange market is very important. The truth of the matter is, if Nigeria was Wakanda in the Marvel comic movie Black Panther, then it would have been a closed economy, and then we don't need a foreign exchange market because we don't trade with the outside world. But the truth of the matter is, in today's world, we do trade with the outside world. For you to trade, you export and you import, right? When we are exporting, we sell our products on the international market and we earn foreign exchange. When we are importing, we need foreign exchange in order to buy foreign products and services. So we then demand foreign exchange in order to purchase these products and import them to Nigeria. So it's the interplay of the supply of this foreign exchange and the demand for this foreign exchange that creates the foreign exchange market. And that creates implications for the price of the foreign exchange, which is the exchange rate. Now, for governments to actually intervene in the market in terms of the supply, we depend on our external reserves or the foreign exchange reserves. So the more external reserves the government has, they are then able to supply more into the market to meet the demand, and therefore is able to then stabilize the price, which is the exchange rate. However, in cases where the supply decreases significantly, all right, and there's excess demand, then it puts upward pressure on the price of foreign exchange, which is the exchange rate, which means that we then need more naira to buy just $1, all right, in order to make these imports. And that's where we then have the problems. And once that happens, businesses that need, foreign exchange for, their raw materials, for the purchase of plant and equipment, see their import costs rise, and they pass it on to the final consumer in terms of higher prices. And sometimes they actually operate at and below capacity and then for layoff workers. So ultimately, when we find ourselves in that kind of situation, it has an adverse impact on standard of living because, businesses don't employ as many people. They sometimes lay off workers. And therefore, the average standard of living goes down for the average Nigerian. And at the same time, because businesses pass on some of these increased input costs to final consumer, average prices goes up and cost of living goes up. So our misery level then goes up in the form of high unemployment rates and high inflation rates, which is bad for the economy. So that's basically the interplay between foreign exchange market, the exchange rate, external reserves, and how it impacts the average Nigerian in terms of the macroeconomy.
But they obviously have impacts on everybody's daily living. But trying to find, I mean, a lot of people have spoken on this, but from your perspective now, this negative net inflow of foreign exchange that we have in the country, would you say it's from the supply side or from the pricing side?
So clearly, government has control over the supply side, and the supply side is made up of different factors. The most important is, our trade balance, right? Our ability to export more. But we know that Nigeria has a peculiar problem. Our exports revenue is highly dependent on the export of crude oil. So what then happens is that with crude oil exports generating around 70% of our foreign exchange, earnings. Anytime there's any exogenous shock on that particular sector, that adversely impacts our crude oil export revenues. That will then lead to these, negative, inflows. So that is a major problem. And we know that government is trying to diversify the economy so that we have other sources of exports beside crude. Other sources of, foreign exchange supply inflows would include remittances. So we've seen CBN trying to be creative and trying to create an incentive for, our family members who are in the diaspora and friends who are in the diaspora, try to send a remittances through the banks, through a more official channel, and then, let the local person earn a little bit more naira. So there are creative ways of trying to ensure that, the supply side actually improves to meet the demand. But all cannot be on the supply side. They also want to think about the demand side, and that's the reason why some of the policies, such as excluding a list of items or products that can access forex through the official channels, so that they can curtail the demand and force people, to actually demand, locally manufactured products of such items that have been unlisted. So these are some of the factors. So it cannot, it's a supply side issue, but there's also a demand side issue that the Central Bank of Nigeria is trying to manage, whereby the demand side also is curtailed a little bit, and the demand for forex is used for more productive ventures, as opposed to things that we can actually produce locally, but people want to just do, demand forex and import them for their own personal use when we can actually access locally produced versions of that. So it's mainly a supply side factor, but there's also a demand side factor, which then impacts the exchange rate, which is the price of forex.
So would you say it's the taste of Nigerians, or would you say it's the availability, of the quality alternative to this imported goods?
So the truth of the matter is, the first question is, do we have enough of these products in the market? So you can make an argument that there are some products that we have no business importing, all right? But the first question is, if you are not going to be importing those products, do you have them in the right amount of quantities to meet the demand, the local demands in Nigeria? And the second question is, does it meet the same level of quality compared to what would have been imported? Because those are two different issues, because quality also impacts demand. As long as the locally manufactured versions are not of the same quality, there's still going to be a demand for the imported versions. And if there's going to be a demand for those imported versions of those products, and those products, the importers are not getting access to forex through the official channels, then definitely they're going to feed the power market, where you're going to have upward pressures on the exchange rate and the power market. And that also creates a problem of inflation, because that means the cost of those products being imported are going to be higher than it should be, and therefore it's going to be passed on to the final consumer. So I think the policy should be such a way that we need to really assess whether do we have enough of such products, locally manufactured or locally available in the market to meet demand locally, and do they meet the quality standards compared to what would have been imported? And if both questions are yes, then clearly it makes sense for us to actually demand such locally manufactured or produced products, as opposed to importing them. That puts undue pressure on the forex, and therefore makes the exchange rate, actually depreciate, and that can hurt the economy.
So where, from your view, do you think we should start solving this problem? Both of the taste, since you said it's yes to both, the taste of Nigerians, and, making more quality. I mean, we have Standards Organization of Nigeria. I think it is their job. When it comes to edibles, we have NAFDAC. These are the agencies that are supposed to ensure that we have quality products in the country. So we have them. So what's stopping us from getting these quality products and services?
So clearly, that is the demand side. And the truth of the matter is, there's this argument that you cannot really force some of this stuff. Some of these things can be culturally motivated. It's called, you use a process of moral suasion rather than forcing people to just consume locally manufactured products, because sometimes it can be a mindset issue. So as long as, our locally manufactured products meet the high standards that, the market is demanding, all right, and we have all these agencies and boards ensuring that we have high quality of such products. And to the extent that they are as good as products that can even be exported, then we'll have a gradual shift away from, excess demand of imported goods that actually we could produce locally. So that would be very helpful, because if in my mind, these products are so good that they can even be exported, then why wouldn't I, demand, a locally manufactured product of such? So I think it's going to be a gradual process of us, making sure that we find locally manufactured products attractive. They meet the high quality standards, so that it's not all the case that we need to be demanding imported products just because in our minds they are usually of high quality. And the fact that it's a foreign product, that means automatically it's of high quality than the locally manufactured product.
Okay, well, looking at another factor now, how much of a challenge is capital flights to the management of foreign exchange in the country, and what implication has it had so far?
So as I said initially, the major source of supply of forex clearly is the export of tangible products and services where we get these forex. But there are others that also play a role. We've talked about remittances. The third element will be capital inflows. And capital inflows can come in different forms. You could have foreign investors participating in our stock market, and bringing in foreign exchange into the market. It could be foreign investors dabbling in our bonds market because they see the interest rates on, let's say, U.S. Treasury and Nigerian Treasury bills on the high side, and so they decide to make investments by purchasing such U.S. and Nigerian Treasury bills. Or it could be in the form of foreign direct investments where they come in and establish businesses in the real sector that creates actual jobs, but there's some injection of foreign reserves into the market. But what is very dangerous is the type of capital inflow. Right, when it's in the form of participation in the bonds market or even the stock market, then investors are able to quickly move their funds out of the market if they find alternatives outside of Nigeria that yield better returns. So really, such types of inflows are highly mobile, and you cannot really bank your economy on such inflows. On the other hand, if we can encourage foreign direct investments, where foreign investments actually come and make investment in specific sectors of the economy, be it consumer products and be it a fintech product or whatever it is, all right, it's much more difficult for foreign investment to just fold up just because we are going through a recession, because they'll have to make projections over a longer period of time and see whether that project is going to be feasible over the medium to long term before they make decisions as to getting out of the economy. So capital flight can be a problem if you are overly dependent on it to stabilize the foreign exchange market. But it obviously helps. Today, if you look at the interest rate on treasury bills, around 6 to 8%, and you have your inflation rate of around 16.8%, clearly there's no incentive to make investments in treasury bills because the real return is actually negative, if you're going to be getting those returns into the future. So clearly that is hurting the inflow through the bonds market, for example. So capital flight is a problem, but it's not huge. The most important thing is to make sure that we become more export-oriented and we diversify away from over-dependence on crude oil exports and make sure that other sectors of the economy are also bringing in some, foreign exchange revenues into the economy.
All right, Dr. Josh Bamfo would have talked about the agricultural sector, which we see contributes over 24% to the GDP, but its earnings, its contribution to the foreign exchange is really low. But I guess we'll have to do that another time because the time is
Definitely.
gone past that. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. Dr. Josh Bamfo is the head of transfer pricing services at Anderson, Nigeria. He's also an economist. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for having me.